we are probably already in a recession because the recession indicator that has a 100% success rate has already triggered. Sahm Rule is an indicator that since 1950 has 100% success rate on predicting recession. Every time when this indicator goes above 0.5, we are already in an early stage of the recession. According to the rule, the early stage of the recession are signaled when 3-month moving average of the unemployment rate moves 0.5 or more percent above the lowest point of the 3-month moving average of the unemployment rate in the past 12 months. So it is official that the Sahm Rule has been triggered because we are currently at 0.53%. And it happened on the day that July non-farm payroll data was released on Friday, August 2nd, because according to the data, the unemployment rate of the United States has risen to 4.3% from the previously released 4.1% on previous month. And the number of payroll increased in the month is 114,000, way below the 175,000 expected. As a result of that, Friday is the worst day for S&P 500 for the entire 2024. And also, on Friday, we see a big decrease in this chart. It's 10-year Treasury yield, right? So 10-year Treasury yield is down to, all the way down to 3.79%. It's telling us that the market's expectation is changing because 10-year Treasury yield is what market believe the average interest rate will be for the next 10 years, right? And it's decreasing sharply. They're thinking that maybe the inflation is not unstoppable and it's being managed. It's under control. And when the 10-year Treasury yield sees such a big move downwards, we'll also see a huge move downwards in the mortgage rate, right? And as we can see, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate in U.S. Provided by Mortgage News Daily, we're seeing a sharp decline to 6.4%. I want to share with you the video clip of the creator of the Sahm Rule that was recorded on Friday after the non-farm payroll report, and this is what she has to say.
Get triggered. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that puts it up over its 0.5 percentage point threshold, noting that comes off of historical experience. That doesn't necessarily tell us where, we are right at this moment, saying a recession. This has seen way too much momentum in the unemployment rate in recent months. 4.3%. Right? This is not, so whether we are at that moment of a recession or not, this is your build into substantial weakening in the labor market. Right? We have seen potential. All is not lost. We are, the bottom's not falling out. We should never panic. There are policy tools, There are levers. And again, I don't overread one data point, but this isn't one data point. So I think the case now for, hey, we're normalizing, we did need to slow things down some, probably, generally speaking. But now the question is, okay, so we've had enough slowing here. What levels this out? And that, I think, I don't have the answer for that.
Claudia,
I think that's the big one. We have had a lot of disruptions in the labor force. So the supply of workers, you even go back to the beginning of the pandemic, millions of people dropping out, and then we had labor shortages, and then we had larger immigration coming in. This has just been a lot. And we all know personally, and then also in the economy, adjustments can be hard if they are big and sudden. And we've had a lot of that. And so this is absolutely in there in these increases in the unemployment rate. We are still working through disruptions. And yet, underneath that is also a much more typical pernicious, not good, increase in the unemployment rate of just there's less demand for workers. And if workers don't have paychecks, they can't spend. And then that's the momentum that gets going. So it's the volume is turned up louder than usual on the Sahm Rule. So I don't look at this and big picture say we are in a recession, but I look at this and I say we're not in a good. We're not headed in a good direction.
Damien,
Talk to us about what happens in September now. Is this enough for the Fed to move?
Fed should have moved.
Should have moved already.
Yeah, this was a discussion, and it's a discussion. I have been in the Fed needs to start. The rest of the economy was normalizing. The rest of the economy was cooling off. The Fed needed to do the same thing.
So in the video clip, she sounds pretty humble. She's saying even though the Sahm Rule was triggered, historically speaking, we're already in a recession, but history performance cannot guarantee today's performance of the indicator. So she's saying maybe we are not in a recession yet, who knows. But she does believe that the triggering of the indicator shows too much momentum in the rise of the unemployment rate, and it's a substantial weakening in the labor market. And this is indicating that a less demand for the worker in US, and when people can't find jobs, they don't bring home the income. They have less money to spend. When people have less money to spend, it's telling us where the economy is not heading to a good direction, because again, 2/3 of the US GDP comes from consumers. And in regards to whether Federal Reserve should cut interest rate in September, she believed the Fed should have already been cutting interest rates. So pretty much saying, aha, I told you to do so, right? Before the meeting, before what we just had, the July FOMC meeting, right? They should have already done so by now, and even earlier than that, right? So she's pretty much saying Federal Reserve is late, right? Federal Reserve is behind the curve again on rate cuts, right? So because when economy is showing signs of weaknesses, right? This is not a one-day thing, right? The inflation has been gone down, and unemployment has gone up throughout many reports, right? So as the as economy is moving towards a certain direction, the monetary policy should have moved along with the economic data. This is a very interesting chart. Shows you the dates that in history that Sahm Rule has triggered, and also show you the U.S. unemployment rate at the time of the trigger, and was also showing you when was the starting of the recession in relation to that specific triggering event. As we can see, when Sahm Rule triggers, right, this is the triggering value, right, there's always a recession, and right, the word prior, right, so pretty much all of them, right, the recession happened prior to the triggering. And there's one time, like 1959, it's like 5 months after the triggering of the rule, we got into a recession. But this is the 100% success rate I was telling you about. And right now, right, we just triggered 0.53. It seems like the market is trying to, right, interpret this data, and Wall Street, of course, is trying to interpret this data. And the narrative is changing, right? It seems like the narrative went from, okay, can we engineer a soft landing, to now, are we gonna get a hard landing, right? So the narrative gets more negative now, and we're also seeing a correction because we have an overdue of a correction, of course. And now some people are even talking about 0.5% rate cut in September instead of the regular 0.25. Right? Both the Citigroup and JP Morgan Chase, they are both forecasting 0.5% rate cut in both September and November meeting. So they're projecting in the next two meetings, we're seeing a 1% policy rate cut, right? Now, to calm the situation, of course, we saw some Federal Reserve official came out on Friday, had some speeches. This is the Chicago Fed President Alston Goolsbee. He came out on Friday and said that the Federal Reserve won't overreact to one piece of economic data. But the funny thing is, this is not one piece of economic data. Sure, you can say the non-farm payroll is one piece, but what I'm showing you this video, the Sahm Rule, is taking a look at a 3-month moving average compared to the lowest point of the past 12 months, 3-month moving average. The Sahm Rule is definitely not a one piece of data. It's a momentum indicator for the unemployment rate. If I pull up the CME Fed Watch tool, it's the probability of rate cuts derived by the Fed funds future. As we can see, the market is not too convinced about double-sized rate cut in September yet, because there is a 78% probability of a 0.25% rate cut in September, and only a 22% probability of a 0.5% rate cut. Right? And for November, there's a 75% chance for another 0.25 rate cut, and a 21% chance for a 0.5% rate cut. So right now, not super convinced yet. Now, my question to you, to the viewers, is what do you think about Federal Reserve? What do you think they should do? Should they act more quickly, like the 0.5% rate cut in September, or should they stay at smaller steps at 0.25, right? One thing I want to mention, just in case you don't know, when they, in the hike cycle, right after the pandemic, they have done larger steps. They used to call that front loading, right? They were going at larger steps than 0.25. They were at 0.5 rate increase per meeting. So they have done that before on the upside. Now I don't see why. I feel like they have the power to do whatever they feel necessary. So please leave your thoughts in the comment section below and let me know. Thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe.